All right, ready to dive in. Today we're looking at Black for Strength.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's this movement gaining traction in Ghana,
Okay.
and they want to reshape the whole country, even the continent.
Wow. Ambitious.
We've got this interview with Richmond Bash.
Who's that?
He leads the movement,
What?
and it's from this radio show, the RBG Hour.
Gotcha.
And he's laying out these bold ideas.
All about black for strength.
Exactly, that's the core of it.
I'm intrigued. This color black thing, it's more than just, looks.
You're picking up on it. It's not just fashion.
Like, there's got to be a deeper meaning.
Bash argues it's about resilience, the strength of African people.
Makes sense.
It's about, moving past the things that have divided Ghana and Africa.
But how do you make that happen? Turn a symbol into real change.
And that's what I'm curious about. Bash gets specific.
Oh, so it's not all just feel-good vibes.
Not at all. He talks about concrete ways to deal with the root causes of the division.
So actual solutions.
And get this, the radio show. They had callers phoning in.
Oh, wow. So real people chiming in.
People in Ghana asking tough questions.
That's been interesting to hear what they had to say.
This one caller, he was a trader.
Okay.
And he was skeptical. Basically saying, decisions are made in Accra, the capital, and the rest of us don't benefit.
Ah, so a disconnect between the center and the rest of the country.
Exactly. And he's basically like, what good is unity going to do for me?
That's a fair question.
And Bash's response was interesting. He wants to set up regional councils.
Councils? For what?
To have a say, a real say in national decisions.
So decentralizing power.
Yeah, so people outside the capital feel like they're being heard.
Sounds good in theory, but is that even possible?
Right. I mean, Ghana's politics are complicated.
It'd be a huge shift.
But what Bash is trying to do is create a system where everyone feels like they have a stake.
Like their voice matters.
Exactly. And if people feel that, maybe they buy into the unity idea more.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
Then there was this teacher, Afia, and she was calling from a rural school.
Okay.
Her concern was that her students are being left behind, missing out on opportunities.
Like the big Ghana dream is only for city kids.
Sadly, yeah. And it's not just money, it's cultural, too.
Right. If rural areas are ignored, the whole unity thing falls apart.
And she's like, what's Bash going to do? Build schools overnight.
Good point.
Bash knows education reform is key.
Okay.
But he says it's got to be about more than just access. It's about what's being taught.
I see. So what's in the curriculum?
He wants to revamp it, include more about Ghana's diverse culture.
Interesting. So it's connecting everyone to a shared identity.
Exactly. Make kids all over the country feel connected.
That's smart, but is that even realistic? Overhauling the whole education system.
It'd be a huge undertaking.
But at least Bash is thinking long-term, not just quick fixes.
He's trying to lay the groundwork for the future.
I respect that, trying to build something that lasts.
So we see how Black for Strength works within Ghana.
Right.
But the radio host pointed out that Bash doesn't stop there.
Oh. There's more.
He's got this whole Pan-African dream.
Wow, hold on. So he wants to unite all of Africa.
That's the goal.
But how? I mean, where does he even begin?
He sees a unified Ghana as a model for the whole continent.
Ah, so start with one country, then expand.
And he connects this to Kwame Nkrumah.
Nkrumah, the first president.
Yeah, Bash is tapping into that legacy.
Bold move.
But Pan-Africanism, it's complex, right? Long history.
Oh, yeah. Lots of different ideas about it.
So how does Bash's vision fit in? What makes it stand out?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. We'll pick things up in part 2. He's going for this ripple effect kind of thing.
Ripple effects, huh?
If Ghana can do it,
unite successfully.
Then it'll inspire others to try it too.
Lead by example.
Right. Show them how it's done.
But good intentions aren't always enough.
No, definitely not.
Lots of movements fizzle out. What makes Bash think this one's different?
I think he's tapping into something powerful with Black for Strength.
Powerful how?
It's not just politics, it's emotional.
Oh, I see. Like a feeling.
The color black, it has weight, especially in Africa.
You're right. It's about history, culture.
It's that connection, belonging with something bigger.
But can that overcome all the division? I mean, the economics, the politics, it's deep.
It's a big question.
Not just in Ghana, across the whole continent.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge.
So how do you bridge that gap?
Bash knows symbols aren't enough.
So what's the plan?
He keeps coming back to fixing those root problems, the inequality.
Right, like you were saying with the regional councils.
Give people a real stake in the system.
So they have power.
So they feel like they have power, that their voice matters.
That's a big change.
Huge. And those in power won't like it.
Pushback, for sure.
People don't give up power easily.
But even if it works in Ghana, could you replicate that
Well,
everywhere?
across Africa, that's the next level.
It's a diverse continent.
Each country has its own story, its own problems.
Exactly. Can one idea really fit everyone?
That's a key point. Bash is betting on a unified African identity.
Like, everyone can rally behind that.
But each country has its own divisions, too. Different ethnic groups, religions.
Right, even political ideologies clash.
It's not so simple.
And what about outside forces?
Oh, you mean like global powers meddling?
Yeah, they've interfered in Africa for centuries.
That's a constant challenge.
How would a unified Africa deal with that pressure?
That's the question that's always haunted Pan-Africanism.
So it's not just about being unified within.
You have to present a united front to the world, too.
Which is harder when countries have different economic interests, different allies.
It's a puzzle with a lot of pieces.
So Bash's vision is inspiring.
Definitely.
But there are some serious roadblocks.
No doubt.
It's not just about getting people to believe in Black for strength.
It's about navigating those power struggles inside and outside Africa.
Okay, so lots to think about there.
For sure.
But let's bring in some historical context.
Okay.
Bash keeps mentioning Kwame Nkrumah.
Ghana's first president.
He's using that connection to give his ideas more weight.
Smart strategy.
But does Nkrumah still resonate with people today?
It's a good question. Nkrumah's a complex figure.
How so?
He's seen as the father of Ghana, a Pan-African hero.
Uh.
There were also controversies, accusations of authoritarianism, economic problems.
So mentioning him is a gamble,
Could inspire some, alienate others.
depending on how they view his legacy.
Exactly. It's a reminder that history is never simple.
It's open to interpretation.
And using history to inspire change is tricky.
You can get bogged down in those different perspectives.
Absolutely.
It makes me wonder if focusing just on Nkrumah is limiting.
Limiting how?
There are other Pan-African figures, other movements.
You're right. It's important to acknowledge that broader picture.
Not oversimplify things.
We need to be inclusive.
So we've looked at the potential problems with Bash's vision.
Some serious challenges.
But let's play what if for a second.
Okay, I like what if.
What if he pulls it off? What would a unified Ghana actually look like?
If Bash is serious about his ideas, we'd see a huge power shift.
Power shift how?
Those regional councils, they'd have real power
To make decisions.
to make decisions that impact their regions, policies for the whole country, not just the capital.
So a much more decentralized government.
Exactly. Power spread out more evenly.
But what about the cultural stuff? The rural-urban divide?
That's where education reform comes in.
If it works the way Bash wants.
Then we'd see a curriculum that celebrates all of Ghana's cultures.
Not just one dominant one.
Everyone feels included, connected to a shared identity.
And wouldn't that change things beyond school?
You mean like a ripple effect into society?
If young people grow up feeling more unified,
It could change how they act as adults, their choices, their priorities,
it could lead to a fairer economy, resources spread out more evenly.
and a more inclusive political system where different voices are heard.
But that's long-term change.
Generational, it takes time.
Not a quick fix.
Definitely not. It's about planting seeds for the future.
For a better Ghana, maybe even a better Africa.
That's the hope.
So we've explored the challenges, the potential,
Both sides of the coin.
but I want to zoom out a bit.
Zoom out.
This deep dive is about Ghana,
Right.
but you said Black for Strength could have a wider impact.
Beyond Africa even,
It's about that human need to connect, to belong.
it's universal.
And using a shared identity to overcome differences, that's not just an African thing.
It happens everywhere.
People always looking for ways to bridge those gaps.
Whether it's race, religion, politics, even just where you live.
Black for Strength gives us a model, a way to approach those problems.
It's about finding common ground, building a more united society.
And it's not just about governments telling people what to do,
It's about giving communities power.
like with those regional councils.
People need a voice, a sense of control.
It's about understanding that unity isn't a finish line.
It's a journey, an ongoing process.
It takes work, communication, willingness to compromise.
And a whole lot of patience.
It's like Black for Strength is giving us a whole new way to think about this unity thing.
It definitely makes you question those old ideas about us versus them.
It's not about ignoring our differences, right?
No, it's about turning them into strength instead of letting them divide us.
And that takes us back to something you said before.
About Black for Strength having an impact beyond Africa.
Yeah, if it can work in Ghana, Couldn't it work in other places dealing with similar problems,
Absolutely. Think about regions with those long-standing conflicts.
like ethnic or religious clashes?
Or places with huge economic divides creating that social tension.
Those core ideas of Black for Strength,
They could be adapted, applied to different situations.
like a blueprint for building connections.
Find that common ground. Build a more united society.
And it's not just governments forcing things top down.
It has to come from the communities themselves.
Give them the power to make change.
That's where those regional councils Bash talked about come in.
It's about giving people a voice, making them feel like they matter.
Exactly. And remember, unity isn't something you achieve overnight.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's ongoing, it takes constant effort, open communication.
And a willingness to find compromises.
Definitely. Gotta be flexible.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into Black for Strength,
It feels like we've learned a lot.
we've seen how this movement is trying to deal with some really tough issues.
Inequality, division, all that.
And not with empty words, but with actual solutions.
Solutions that focus on empowering people.
And while uniting all of Africa is a huge goal,
It's a big one for sure.
what I find most interesting is that emphasis on building a stronger Ghana first.
From the ground up.
Like you said, lasting change starts at home.
It's about creating a sense of shared identity, a shared purpose.
Within our own communities.
Building those strong foundations.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with something to think about. We've talked about the impact of Black for Strength on a national level.
Even on a continental level.
But what about on a personal level?
Our
We all belong to different communities, right?
neighborhoods, our workplaces, our online groups, sure.
What if we applied these ideas to those smaller circles?
Interesting. How do you mean?
What are the values that connect us in those communities?
The things we all care about.
What challenges do we face together?
And how can we collaborate to overcome them?
It's about having those open conversations, appreciating each other's differences.
And finding ways to support each other.
Exactly. Realizing that we're all connected.
Our well-being is tied to the well-being of our community.
So, as we finish this deep dive, think about how Black for Strength could apply to your own life.
It's your own community.
Could it inspire you to build bridges to understand each other better,
To create a more positive and inclusive future.
not just in Ghana, but right where you are?
It's a powerful idea.
Think about it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.